So, determination. I think the first question is, what are we determined to do?
Sitting practice.
Say again?
Sitting practice.
There you go. That's a great start. We're determined to wake up. We're determined to become a human being. 100% human being, so not so much animal. Yeah? Because we are animals, but we're also human beings. And that's the remarkable thing. Buddha was just a human being. And he realized what the whole story was about being a human being. And when he did that, he was able to stop his own suffering, and he was able to teach others to not suffer. So he would teach the nature of suffering and the way out of suffering. And that starts with kindness, compassion, and wisdom. He's teaching a way of taking our experiences, our conditions, the situations we're in, the bodies that we have, the circumstances we're confronted with, and digesting them so that they become wisdom. So Buddha didn't leave anything out. His wake-up experience was, oh, all things have this. All things have this quality. And since all things have this, all human beings, even the ones that are suffering a lot have a way out. The ones that are causing a lot of harm have a way out. The ones that are causing a lot of good also have a way out. A way out of their own suffering, and a way of digesting what happens to them, like toothaches and headaches or car accidents or whatever, and digesting those events and turning them into wisdom. How do we use the toothache to help somebody else? How do I use the car accident to help myself and the people I care about? So it's a completely wide view that Buddha's teaching. And then, because people were so diverse, people were so different from one person to another, he offered different kinds of teaching for different kinds of people. And it had a kind of prescriptive approach, kind of like a doctor prescribing a medication, a style of practice, or a way of practicing or behaving that would help that particular temperament to see the nature of their own suffering and then be able to change it, transform it themselves. So Buddha wasn't the agent that transformed people. And he would even say, I don't even exist. That the part of a complete waking up is, oh, this particular self we're also familiar with or fond of is a construct. A useful construct, and in no question it's here, but it is just a construct. And so if it's a construct that's creating suffering, find the root of that activity and understand it. We say attain it. Once we attain it, it actually dissolves. It goes away by itself. Because our natural state is awake. Our natural state, we see in children and in babies a lot. That's our natural state. Just awe, wonder, paying attention. But we have agency. You know, a little 5-month-old baby or a 12-month-old or maybe 18 months old, still not so much agency. Then right around 2 years old, some agency appears, which is usually in the form of no. That was my experience. And I think that's everyone's experience. So here's this pure mind, but that pure mind of a child cannot function even to help the child itself or to help this world. So then we grow up in our families with all kinds of conditions and circumstances, and we have this pure mind like a child, but then it gets filled in. It gets filled in with what our parents tell us, what our school tells us, what the TV show tells us, what Saturday morning cartoons tell us. So our mind just gets filled. And if we don't pay attention That's all we have, is this mind just filled up with everybody else's idea. And what's my actual idea? What's my actual experience? Am I noticing just something I was taught? Or am I noticing my direct experience? Am I thinking thoughts that are mine? Or are these just a lot of thoughts someone else has put into my head? So even a Zen teacher, or a Buddhist teacher is putting ideas into your head. That's what I'm trying to do right now. But I'm trying to put an idea in that helps you take ideas out. The Buddha's metaphor was a thorn. It's like when we have a thorn in our hand and we can't get it out, like a splinter, it's kind of deep. But then we go to the rose bush, we break off a thorn, and we use that thorn to get the other one out. Yeah? So it isn't a judgment on thinking. It's a judgment on attachment to the thinking. And it isn't a judgment or a view that words aren't useful. It's that attachment to speech keeps us from being clear. So we're determined to become clear, would be how my teacher would put it. And we have a chance to be clear at any moment. And naturally that clarity will appear by itself. And then we'll cover it up with attachment to our feeling or attachment to our thinking. And then we'll return to some clarity. And we'll do fine. And then our attachments will appear again. And we won't know our way. So it's a constantly changing quality. Even for someone like myself who's been meditating for 30 years, it's in a constant state of change. The clarity comes and goes. The only thing that can change over time is we develop a kindness habit and a return habit, returning to the moment, to what's exactly happening now. What is the situation or truth we're in, and what is our relationship to that truth, and then what function appears out of it. So back to that point about the baby's clear mind or the baby's pure mind. So that original mind we start with is pure, then it gets all clutter, clutter, clutter. Some Buddhist traditions call that impure. Mahayana Zen style is to not worry so much about whether the mind is pure or impure. Is it clear? And then can it use whatever's in it? So that's it's a subtle but significant distinction. However, if we're trying, the wisdom takes care of itself. Like I'm making a subtle point. If it resonates, great. If it doesn't resonate, that's also great. It's this try mind is what we would call determination. The Buddha gave us a very simple metaphor for try mind. I doubt if he said guitar, but he said it's like the strings on a guitar. If the string is tuned really tightly, wound really tightly, it's sharp and you can't make music. If you unwind the string on the guitar and it becomes too floppy, it's flat. You also cannot make music. So when the musician is tuning the guitar string, there's just enough tension. Oh, so now it's G or C. It's some particular key. That amount of tension is capable of making music. So in practice, our try mind is like that. If we make too much effort, it's like tuning that string too tightly. And we have a common expression, that guy's wound really tightly. Like that. I think that's the Buddha's point. And then, we also all know somebody who goes, don't you care? And maybe they don't care because they're distracted. Maybe they don't care because they're sick. Maybe they don't care because they're confused. But that sense of apathy or not motivation, that's like a floppy string. It won't hum. It won't hold pitch. So we can look at our tri-mind like that and always extend kindness to it, because anybody who starts to meditate, even a few months, is going to start to see their failures. They'll start to see what they think are flaws. And that's natural. And also what we tend to do is judge those things or correct them or try to fix them. And from a practicing point of view, that's not so clear. Instead, we just take an observation kind of attitude. Oh, I just failed. Oh, I just forgot to make that point. Or, oh, I didn't do so well in that board meeting. What can I do to adjust? So it's a kind of curiosity and perception. So there is discernment going on, but not so much judgment. Then if the judging mind appears, Tim, you're no good. You lost your temper in the board meeting. Yeah, if that mind appears, then we have to be kind to that mind. Oh, come on in. What are you so upset about? I'm upset because you lost your temper in the board meeting. Oh, okay. What was the cause of that? So then we begin to look deeply. You may or may not have noticed in the Heart Sutra, it talks about Avalokiteshvara. That's a fancy Sanskrit name, but it means the one who looks deeply. And that's not actually rare. That's something we can do all of the time. We can look deeply at what our experience is, and we can also look deeply at the experience of the people around us, if that's the moment we're in. So if I'm having this, if I'm unhappy with how I was in a board meeting, then I look deeply at that unhappiness. I look deeply into the suffering. And then the suffering becomes my teacher. Oh, you were impatient because of this. Oh, you had this expectation and it wasn't met. Oh, you had this agenda and no one was listening. Something like that appears. So now I have what's called understanding. And what have I understood? I've understood myself. The more I'm able to understand myself, my interior, then the more I'm able to understand others and other people's interiors. And I would suggest, and some recent teachers are suggesting, the most fundamental thing confronting humanity now is that we learn to understand our own interiors. Because then we're going to understand our motivation. We're going to understand what we are determined about. And then we're going to know what the other people are determined about. We're going to have the vocabulary, we're going to have the dimensions from the experience of ourselves to be able to see into those dimensions in anybody else. A stranger, a family member, a close friend, a student, a teacher, whoever. The person at the grocery store. It can happen that easily. We're that rich as human beings. It's the extraordinary thing that makes us human, and yet, if we don't do the work to understand it, we become animals. Maybe for 5 minutes, maybe for 15 minutes, maybe 15 years. But if we look deeply at our interior process, we become more human and less animal. Animals take care of their children. Some animals even take care of their family, and they'll even take care of their tribe. You know, a pack of dogs. We're better than that. That's not us. So we have to discover what makes us different and trust it so that those impulses we understand and attain and they don't drive the car, and then our clarity of mind is present. And then we're determined to help this world. Then we're determined to understand ourselves. Then we're determined to understand no self. Then we're determined to understand no self in others. Then we're determined to understand enlightenment. And determined to understand compassion, wisdom, and how we can help. So determination is a try mind. And the amount of effort is comfortable. It's a kind of manageable effort. My teacher would tell a story about practice in general, and it's really a beautiful story, so I'm going to repeat it here. He tells the story of a man and a woman who fall in love in the 50s in Korea. And they get married, and about 2 months after they're married, the Korean War begins. So the man is subscripted into the army and sent to North Korea, where he's fighting. And about 2 months into it, the woman realizes she's pregnant, and she can't tell her husband, there's no way to communicate. And then she learns that he dies in the fighting in North Korea. So now this unborn baby becomes extraordinarily important to her. It becomes a way of bringing her husband back from the dead when this child is born. So the baby's born, she's very happy. She's living in southern Korea. The war is over, and she devotes her whole life to making things best that they can be for this child. It's a boy. So she has a part-time job, she takes care of the boy, she has a garden, she cleans her house, she stays very, very busy. And everything is for the sake of her son, because it's also for the sake of her husband. It's so not just her love for her husband, but also her love for this son is fulfilled just with doing things, staying busy, being productive, not particularly rich, not particularly well off, but with her friends, making quilts, doing handcrafts that they sell, tending her garden, making sprouts, selling them in the marketplace, saving money for the boys' school, saving money to pay the rent, like that. So very straightforward. The boy grows up, goes to school, he's successful, she's very proud of him. He goes to college, she's very proud of him. And at that time in Korea, all young men serve 2 years in the military. And at that time in Korea, the Vietnam War begins. And so her son is sent to Vietnam to fight alongside of Americans on the American side of the fight. Now, Sansanim would say, many people, this would happen to them, and first they'd say, why is this happening to me? All of my effort, and now my son is in this war fighting. They would feel so bad, they'd feel sick. They'd feel weak. They'd feel unempowered. And could get, and just fall apart over the grief of the risk, the anticipation of the loss. But this woman doesn't do that. She thinks, I love my son, I love my husband, I'll continue. I'll keep working even more. I'll save more money for when he comes back from being in war. I'll not just clean my house, but I'll clean other people's houses, and I'll save that money. And I'll have 2 gardens, and I'll help my friend with their garden. So then I have more things to sell at the market. So she just makes herself industrious. And the whole time she's industrious, it's determination for her son, for the memory of her husband. So that's constantly in her mind. Happily, the son doesn't get killed. His time in Vietnam is finished. The war isn't over, but he comes home. She's reunited, and she carries on. So Sansanim would use this story. That's how our sense of try and our sense of what is this is best cultivated. While we're doing the dishes, while we're driving, walking, standing, lying down, sitting in meditation, going to the grocery store, all the time, what is this? What is this? What is being a human being? What is the truth I'm in? That kind of clear mind returns us to the moment. yeah, some attached feeling appears. She was very attached to her son. But it brings her fully into the moment. So we call that wisdom. The Sanskrit word is prajna. And in that moment is when we are Buddha and we're able to help this world. And if we have some thinking, experience, conditions, whatever our job is, all that helps. So even if we're in a bad mood, we figure out how our bad mood helps this world. Even if we're concerned about something going wrong, we use that concern and use that to help this world. Then we might feel really strong and optimistic and everything's going well. We use that to help this world. So whatever appears, it's the same as this woman's devotion to her son. Oh, I'm only doing this for my son, just so when he returns, things are better for him. So not for her, I, my, me, but for the other. So those are the three main points. We keep a very wide mind about what we're trying to do because at its foundation is don't know. Don't know. This woman had no idea what the future was for her son, but she still had this energy, had this focus. It didn't stop her from being friendly, hanging out with her friends, doing all that kind of stuff. Didn't change anything, but gave her a direction. And we would also call that a vow. So intention and vow, those are the things we're maintaining with our determination. And from a practicing point of view, it's always, what is this? How are things right now? And, you know, like even in my experience in the board meeting, I wasn't completely on my game. You know, I was becoming impatient. I was getting amped about a topic and a person and, you know, what action we should take. And I wasn't just keeping my question, well, how is this right now? And what can I do to help? I won't bore you with the details, but we're invested in things. We care about things. So the Buddha's never suggesting that we don't invest wholeheartedly in our lives and in the people we know. Just keep that rooted in, well, how is it exactly right now? What is the situation I'm in? What's my relationship to it and what's my function? So I'll wrap the talk up there and kind of invite any questions from the people online or from people in the room, in case I said something that didn't make sense, or if someone has a share or editorial or complaint, you're welcome to do that. Those are sometimes very, become something that teaches all of us, so I always encourage it. And thanks for your attention. So this separateness of each other is illusory, technically. So your substance and my substance are the same. Before our thinking and feeling arises, there's no separation. You heard that, I heard that, everybody in the room heard that. So that's a demonstration of no separation. But as soon as thinking, feeling, what did he mean by that clap, whatever, anything that appears in our mind, then that separation begins to be there. But it's only up here. So we have a vagus nerve, I think, and we have our neurological system, and mine's got a fair amount of adrenaline right now because I'm giving a talk. Maybe someone here has some anxiety, so they're in a certain state. And maybe some people here are quite calm. They're in a different state. So all of us are in a completely different mental state. And if we don't know what state we're in, we're not going to be able to perceive clearly what's going on. Also, many of our states are contagious. And we have lots of examples of that. Some of them very wonderful, like when everybody was meditating earlier, and it was very, very calm. and calm people cause other people to be calm. And then we have examples of people being agitated or excited and that being contagious. So I think this is answering your question. The fact that we seem separate is part of the whole. So the Buddha's not suggesting that nature is organized around opposites, light and dark, hot and cold. The universe is organized around those opposites, but those opposites have the same substance. So when someone in this room is suddenly hurting, I'm hurting. You know, when I see someone hurting on the television, then I hurt. So then what's the skillful, wise thing to do? That's a very important question. If I consume a lot of suffering and I don't balance it with wisdom, I can get lost in compassion. And I can't skillfully use my compassion. So passion means generally suffer, and calm generally means with. So compassion generally means we suffer with. So if we watch too much suffering on the television, or TikTok, or what have you, or read about it, then we're going to suffer with, and lose sight of our wisdom. So we don't want to do that, because wisdom has to do with our understanding and our awareness. So compassion and wisdom together, we can become skillful. So if I'm amped up in a board meeting, the sooner I know that, the sooner I can pay attention to that, and I can tend to that and do a better job in the board meeting. The longer I go not tending to that, because I've created all of that, I'm not functioning very well in terms of the meeting. When we do what Thich Nhat Hanh calls deep listening, we're listening without attaching to the speech. And the funny kind of way of characterizing this, a man and woman are about to go out for the evening, and the woman turns to her husband and says, "How do I look?" Does this, you know, she's asking, just tell me I look fine, because we're going out in public and I want to look good on your arm. But if he goes, well, I'm not sure I like those earrings, or I like those blue earrings instead of those white ones. That's not where that needs to go. So if he attaches to her speech, how do I look? He's going to answer the question. That's not what she's asking. She's asking for some, do I look, are you proud of me, you know, on your arm for the dinner, for the night out on the town? So we listen deeply, and we do have to ask each other that we're that complicated on the surface, and we're that simple at our depths. So if we have the heart, if we have the courage to communicate with each other on the surface, then we will gradually be able to hear one another in our personal dynamics. You made a very interesting point in your question, which is sometimes I don't have a clue what's going on in people that I know and love. That's an extraordinary amount of honesty, and it's extraordinarily true. Because many times we think, oh, I've been with this person 20 years, I know who they are. That's the first mistake. Yeah, if I think I know who my husband is, I'm not going to listen deeply, because those assumptions become a filter for whatever it is he's saying. And I'm no longer in the moment. Yeah, so he's making a really important point. The practice is accepting things as they are. Now that doesn't mean we become a doormat, but it does mean, oh, how is it right now? That question I was posturing, how is it right now? And it doesn't need to be fixed. It doesn't need to be cured. And then if there's a misunderstanding, what is the shape of the misunderstanding? How is that right now? That gets really rich and interesting if you can involve the other person equally. Communicate that there's no agenda here. Just how is it? And is everybody okay? Or does something need to adjust? It's subtle and beautiful if we can be calm.
And they're invested in it. Because they have to be just as invested in it as you.
They don't have,
Well, I mean, if it's gonna be, otherwise you have to leave.
yeah. So people's level of investment with each other, I think, is in a constant state of change. If it is a close relationship that's enduring over some period of time, our aspiration is that the investment be the same. And our exploration is the investment the same. I asked my teacher once about this, and his answer was, if it's ever for you, it will always lead to more suffering. But if your participation with the person is always for them, it'll always work out. So that is hard to do. And it won't always match. I actually, most of the time, it doesn't match. It's been my experience. But, and this comes into play, I think, even with parents and children, with children and their parents, with partners, with business partners, with creative partners. If they're in it for themselves, then ultimately it's going to hit the rocks. But if they're in it for the common good, or they're in it for the good of the other, then it almost always goes smoothly. It still doesn't mean we become a doormat. It just means we're actively looking for the greatest good. I don't know if that helps, but this is our karma. You know, the causes and effects that are most intimate with us, so those are the hardest to navigate, but they are also the richest, and they tell us right away what's going on. If we're able to find our interior process and become clear about it, there's actually nothing to be afraid of. You know, we're afraid we're not going to get what we need, and the thing is, we have everything we need already inside. And when we're participating with our children, or with our parents, or with our partners, or our creative partners, there's a lot of fear in there that's rooted in just some idea. So if we can return to this question, what is this? Then our attachment to the idea falls away, and then we're actually in the moment, we're present. Yes, it came from her clarity about her situation, the truth she was in, the situation she was in, and her relationship to it, and then her function. So it was just what we call a do-it mind, instead of a worry mind, a fear mind, a why me mind. All those other minds, she didn't pay any attention to. She just paid attention to her do-it mind, and the love for her husband, her deceased husband, and her son were the root of that. There was one thing I appreciated about the story, because Sansanim is pointing out, our human emotions are very wonderful. They can be used to wake up. Anything we experience as a human being has the potential for being transformed into clarity and our correct function in the world. She didn't, in the story, she doesn't join an anti-war protest and abandon saving money for her son and march in the street with sticks and stuff like that. Of all the thousands of things she could have done, she just did her everyday life. But she had a very big do-it mind. She stayed busy. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
So would you say that compassion and empathy without detachment is codependence?
Well, I didn't hear the...
Compassion and
empathy without
detachment is codependence?
Is codependence. I'm reluctant to say a formula like that. Compassion and empathy spring naturally from our true nature. So then the challenge is to be clear about our compassion and our empathy. So what is the situation, the relationship and function? So I know that's pretty abstract.
I guess it's more to like outcome, right? Because if I have a compassion and empathy, and yet I'm attaching an outcome to it.
Correct. If there's
Right.
an outcome, that's all desire.
Right.
But if we don't attach to the outcome, then it's
So I
wisdom.
can be detached from the outcome or detached from anything, and that's
Yeah, detached is not the word I use because that's as if I'm numb or not connected. Non-attached.
non-attached.
So we have the experience, like of sadness, or grief, or dismay. That this homeless person needs money. Yeah. So I don't have a detached experience when a homeless person comes up to me and asks for money at the service station. Sometimes, and I can't explain why, I do not give them any money. Other times, and I can't explain why, I give them whatever's in my pocket. And I can't tell you the difference. Sometimes the look in their eye, I don't know. Their age, their health, whatever. But in all of those situations, I'm not detached. There's a heartbreak that's happening. This is my situation. This is what's my relationship. It's total stranger. What's my function? I'm thousands of times wealthier than they are. I could probably spare $2 or $5. So I can spare it. Then I'm done. Then I finish gassing up the car and I go. But then that happens again and I don't hand over $2 or $5. But I don't check myself. I don't check the situation. And I don't think I'm checking the homeless person, the unhoused person. I'm just participating with reality. And I don't know. I don't know why that shakes that way. But I'm just trusting. And I'm not checking. And sometimes fear will appear. Like, oh, I have to be careful of this person. They're an actual threat. Maybe that's intuition. Maybe that's noticing some real details about them, their energy. I don't know. But then I take precautionary action. So it isn't that we stop paying attention. We're always paying attention.
Hi, I'm Robert Lurie with Long Beach Meditation. Your gracious generosity makes this programming possible. If you found this video to be of value, please consider making a donation here. And if you'd like to watch more videos like this one, click here. And if you want to stay up to date with Long Beach Meditation, click here to subscribe. Thank you.